Welcome to This is Wealth. On this podcast, we ask, what is wealth? What does wealthy really mean to you? Most of us immediately think of money, but honestly, wealth is so much more than that. If you have health, deep friendships, a supportive family, you have great wealth. My name is Liz Crawford. Get ready to be impacted. On this episode of This is Wealth, I speak with Jose Molina, an educator of over 20 years. We talk about the importance of personal financial education and how it's not a requirement, even though it's something most of us use every single day. Getting our kids engaged and starting with these skills early on could be a change in lifestyle for many kids. Join us as we talk about the important topics that can be life-changing for kids and adults. Jose's going to give us practical tidbits that we can use with our kids. So get your pen and paper out, get ready to take notes, and let's get informed. Welcome back to another episode of This is Wealth. Today my guest is Jose Molina. And Jose, instead of me telling people who you are, would you tell a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you, first of all, for the invitation. It's a privilege to be here. Yes, so my name is Jose Molina. I'm a math teacher, considered math teacher at St. Mary's Hall. It's it'll be my 22nd year coming up. I've been in San Antonio since then. 2000, we came to San Antonio. It took me a while to get to this place, teaching. It didn't just fall into, I was 35 when I first started doing it, so I've done other things before that. But yes, I'm happily married for the last 27 years.
Get that right, you're on camera.
One child, yeah. I was 27 years with one child who's a teenager. And we're working on with him, of course, financial literacy, of course, with him, because he has a job, fully employed. But yeah, do you want me to go into how I got to teaching?
That was my next question, so please.
So when I graduated from A&M, went to Texas A&M. I graduated from college. I didn't go straight into teaching. I went to medical school. I think my story a lot. I think my parents, as any parent, I think wants their child to I think be better off than they are. That's kind of a wish for us as well. My father, we came from modest means, and my father, I think was like, hey, you got to be a lawyer, got to be a doctor, kind of one of those things. So jumped right into medical school here in San Antonio. Went for about 2.5 years, and then realized, okay, this is not really what I want to do. Of course, I was in debt. There was a debt that came with that. So went ahead and withdrew, but I stayed in the medical field, and I got my degree in occupational therapy.
Okay.
So I was an occupational therapist for a few years. That's where I met my wife. She was a medical student at the time. Was a TA for one of the classes I had. But we both went to Arkansas for a couple of years. She did her internship. I worked as a pediatric OT. And then she decided to shift fields. She was a family practitioner, decided to go into pathology, become a medical examiner, which she is now. So she we came back to San Antonio. And so I was looking for a job as an OT. And she was starting her residency. And so I couldn't find a job as a pediatric OT. It's like, I don't know if I want to do work with older people. So I went back to school. Math has always been a passion of mine. And in between that too, those 10 years where I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, I did some substitute teaching and taught. So I was exposed to that. And that was like a lot of fun. I very much enjoyed that. So, So I went back to school, got my master's degree from UTSA in statistics.
You should have told me that before. I'd have had you help my son this summer.
It's statistics. Yes, I love teaching statistics. But my at that time, it's interesting. I met a woman who was a teacher from St. Mary's Hall, and that's how I got connected with St. Mary's Hall.
Okay.
And teaching. She said, we have so many kids that need help with math and tutoring. Why don't you just come and I'll put your name out. And she did that. And so at that time, I had like 1 or 2 clients, and I very much remember the young woman I tutored way back when, 24 years ago now. And she told her friends. And so I had, within about 2 or 3 months, about 100 students on my roster. Yeah. And there was a woman on the board of St. Mary's Hall and said, and one of her, I tutored a couple of her students, said, why don't you just come and teach at our school? I said, well, first of all, I don't have a teaching degree. So, you don't need one. It's private school. And so I said, okay, sure enough. And that's kind of how I got started at St. Mary's Hall. I was teaching math. It was calculus. It was algebra, the traditional kind of math classes. And it took a while before I discovered financial literacy, like the personal finances. I started doing statistics, even the stock market, even the market, which I'm really into now. Both of those came about by students, believe it or not. I was teaching statistics in 2010. I remember that. And I still talk to this young man. He's in town, a commercial real estate guy. But he said, Mr. Molina, you teach statistics. Why are you not involved in the market, stock market? It's the greatest thing. I said, it's all numbers. It's all crunching. I said, you were absolutely correct. And so sure enough, much to my wife's dismay, I got into that. And so, yeah, got some money together. I started trading. It wasn't so much investing. And that was probably where I messed up at the beginning. But that's how I got exposed to it. And then the following year, another student of mine, one of the teachers, Mr. Kirk, came back from this conference and brought this book back that was called Financial Algebra. And he said, yeah, I'm not going to teach anybody. And I said, do you want, he asked in a meeting, who wants to do this? I immediately raised my hand and said, I'll do it. And I said, it was 2012, I think it was. And sure enough, I put together a course syllabus, put together a kind of curriculum. And I went to the beauty of private school. I went to the curriculum committee and I said, hey, can I teach this course? And they said, sure, you can. And it was fantastic. And from there is how I started the personal finance.
We're even thinking to put that in perspective from a time frame. 2008, 2009 was the great financial crisis. 2012, people were still sweating. We were still wondering how much the market was going to come back. So those were brave times to be wading into the stock market and to be thinking about things.
Completely agree.
So what made you move? You told your story of how you started to play in the stock market. How'd you get the kids involved?
A good question. So about 2000, well, with the class, it was with the class that I started asking some of the students if they wanted to do more about the stock market, because the class was not all about the market. It was about budgeting, and it was personal finance, right?
So you teach traditional math classes, and then you started a personal finance class.
And so the only traditional math class, once I started that class and had statistics, which, some people, it's not really math. It's kind of got its own kind of niche, more like a business class, sort of. I did teach calculus. That was the only class I kind of held on to. And then after a while, it was just personal finance and statistics, which I think kind of go together, sort of. So some of the kids, a lot of kids, and you've had kids go through high school. They want to start clubs. They want to be, they want something to kind of help them get into college because it's helpful.
Build their resume.
Build a resume. And so these kids got together, a couple of kids, and said, Mr. Molina, why don't we start they said investment club. And I was thinking personal finance, but they said, yeah, let's start an investment club. And I said, sure. I said, I'll sponsor it. Absolutely. It's tailor-made for what I'm doing. And it was great. And so that's kind of where it got started, is the kids kind of pushed that along. Kind of like with myself in the stock market, Kish kind of pushed me. I was like, oh, okay, I'll just keep going, And so, so it started as a club, and we had some meetings, just like anything. We had a president, vice president, and officers, and we had meetings, and it was more simulated kind of stuff. We did, we talked about the stock market itself as a whole. They talked about different companies they would invest in, but we didn't really do a lot of investing. It was hard for me to try and figure out how we're going to, teach it and actually have them, what's it called? Sort of understand how the workings of the market, how they worked, because it's hard. It's easy to just kind of talk about it. You really don't understand it until you actually do it.
That's right.
And so the onus so we started the account we have now is a real account. So 2015 it was not, or 2014. 2015 is when I personally went to the board, or went to my headmaster, or the head of school, and I said, look, I'd love to do what, and I did some research on this. I said, is there any, I know that colleges had these real accounts, these managed accounts, right? So, are there any high schools or any schools? And the only one I could find was a school in Dallas, which is a private school called Green Hill, and they had one. Somebody gave them, I think the person who wanted to start it, the father gave him $100,000. And here's $100,000. And when I saw that, I was like, well, I can't do $100,000. And so I said, well, I think we can start it. And at first, when I went to them, they were talking about maybe pulling it from the endowment, and then they said, no, we can't do that, can't do this. So I said, okay. So fortunately, that year I won what they call a Master Teacher Award, which is at St. Mary's Hall, Master Teacher Award, which is a $10,000 gift. And
very nice, yes.
So minus the taxes, I took the amount, and I said, let me start the fund with this. I said, do you mind if I put this back into the fund? And of course, I had my wife. She said, yeah, go ahead, that's fine. So I started that. I started it with about $5,000, seeded with $5,000, and that was a small account. And there were a couple of parents who gave a couple of thousand, and so on. And so we started with about $8,000 in 2015. And so what was interesting though is when the CFO at the time was very kind, and they kind of, it took some legwork to put that together and create an account there at the school, because I didn't want it under my name.
You don't want to pay taxes on it.
No.
Yes.
I was like, wait a second, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe with the school being nonprofit or not-for-profit, they actually don't have to pay taxes on that amount, I believe. And so it kind of just funds back. Well, we're not taking any money out, but if we did, it would fund back into the school. And so it was interesting when we first started, though. Once we got it going, I said, okay, so who's going to pitch a stock? They didn't want to. They were like petrified of losing the money. I said, don't worry, it's not your money, it's the school's money. I was like going, you'll be fine.
So you're at a private school of high achievers, and nobody wants to make the first mistake.
Right. So let's pitch this stock. And so KMI, I remember vividly what that stock was. It was KMI. And so you pitch that Kinder Morgan, and they pitched that company, and we don't have that. We still don't have it. We don't have that company anymore in our portfolio. But that was 2015, August of 2015, and so 9 years later, 2004 now, the account sits at $60,000. It just broke the $60,000 mark, and that's an all growth. But they've done a very good job. I think about 25,000 of it is seed money, like donations that came in. Right,
it's fantastic.
But I'd say about 35 to 40, almost, was growth, and they've done pretty well with it. So.
It shows kids in real life what compounding of returns does over time, and the fact 100%. That you can show what you began with, the milestones that it passed, and how investing during that time, the rates of return. It's a fantastic tool.
Well, I think once we were kind of going with the market as far as I kept up. I kept the S&P. I just so what's the benchmark? What's the S&P doing? And try to keep track and see how we were doing with that. And I had to adjust when we put money in to kind of lower that, because I didn't want that to go, it's false. And we just stick money in there, so we're doing this well. So, but it wasn't probably until 2020 that this young man, I vividly remember him, I still talk to this young man, came in and got very aggressive with the account. So we need to be fully invested, because we were not fully invested, right?
Which part of 2020 was this?
He got involved. It was during COVID, right? Okay. So COVID hit in March, right? Whenever it was.
Right. So the market fell down 35%.
We were still kind of not fully invested, which is probably luckily for us. But once that hit, he was, oh yeah, let's just, it's going to come back. And he was correct. And he was pitching restaurant stocks. Like, going, restaurant stocks, this is crazy, because nobody's going to restaurant. He said, well, and sure enough, it just Darden's and Cheesecake. I was like, whoa. And he was pitching him, and the kids were like, it was on Zoom, of course. He was pitching him, and the kids were like, oh, let's, and we missed out on Zoom. Somebody was going to pitch a Zoom. And we just, and I was kind of encouraging them, we're using the Zoom thing. They just didn't, that's fine.
You can't get them all.
Well, no, we can't get them all, but they did pretty well. And so Chewy was the big one. Chewy was Trupanion, I'm sorry. It was Trupanion's like an insurance for pets.
Okay.
So that was a big one that just popped for us.
Because everybody got a pet.
But we do have, like in our portfolio, we do have the big stocks like Microsoft, Google, a lot of tech, NVIDIA. We're fortunate to have NVIDIA right now. And those have helped, right? But they've done some trades, because I let them do it. I said, it's your club, right? I kind of step back and say, what do you want to do? And so they, some people like to trade, and I'll let them, as long as they have a plan, pitch it. They still have to pitch everything to the group, and we all still vote on it. It's not just, I'm going to do this now, and I go, okay, let's do it. I'm the one that controls the account as far as like putting the trades in, but they're the ones that give me the information. So, but they really have a fun time with it. It's I say fun time with it, but now they think they're comfortable with, it's not our money. It's not our money. It's the school's money, right? And we're doing well. And so, even right before the summer, we had about $9,000 sitting in cash, and one of the students said, "Hey, we need to put that into an ETF, like in the market somehow. Let's get that going. They think the summer's going to go well?" And I said, "Okay, well then pitch they pitched the QQQ, the Nasdaq." And I was like, "Oh," and so I put $9,000 in the Nasdaq, and sure enough, they made about $2,000 off of that.
It's great.
So it worked out. Now it could have not worked out. We'd have learned a lesson there too.
That's right.
So I think that's that's always, but it's always fun and we keep. I have the portfolio in Google Drive, where everybody can see it, because I can't really. We were in Charles Schwab, I think is
right.
Well, it was TD Ameritrade, now it's Charles Schwab. So I have to put it out there so that I want them to keep track of it. And they do, and they're like, "Hey, Miss Molina, this is not going well." And I was like, "Well, that wasn't our plan. Our plan was to keep it. So we're not going to just, if you want to sell it, you have to pitch that sell, right?
That's right.
You can't just willy-nilly do it. We have to go through the group
Having a sell discipline is
100%.
just as important as having a buy discipline.
I think it's harder.
It is harder.
I think it's personally harder. Like, oh, I'm jumping this stock. It looks great. What are you going to do after that?
You become emotionally attached to the
correct.
idea or to the stock.
Correct. And then fear and greed sets in.
Yes.
And that's one of the things I try and tell them is that it is a psychological game. It is so, I mean, I think we do, and that's why I think as a group we do much better because we stick to our objectives versus if you're an individual sitting there, let me just sit here and click these buttons. Like, because I've done that.
You have somebody hold you accountable in a group.
100%. And they do. And
so how many people are in the club?
That's a great question. So it started out small, very beginning, but it got to like 60. It was like the most popular club, and it still kind of is. But I think with COVID, I think it hurt a lot of the clubs because it wasn't just mine suffering. So I think as far as active members, maybe 20, maybe 20, 25. I have 5 officers. I call them, instead of president, we call them portfolio manager, right? It's just kind of catchy names.
Industry language.
Section analyst or chief analyst. And we do use CFO as the person in charge of the trying to raise some money for the because we are trying to still get, not donations, but, trying to raise some funds because that's how you grow it. That's compound. I mean, when you hit certain thresholds, and then it really moves. I mean, even though you're making 5%, but 5% of $100,000 is a lot versus 5% of $1,000. I mean, it's still right. So that's kind of what we're trying to shoot for. So, but it's going well. In the officers I do my elections in January versus like a lot of clubs do them in August. But I'm in January because I'll have some seniors that their spring comes around, they're checked out, and so I'm like, okay.
Senioritis is real.
Right. Only senior, 100%. I only want seniors in the fall because they're still really grinding out because they still haven't gotten to college yet.
That's right.
And so it worked out. It's worked out well. And so if you run for office, it has to be a junior or sophomore.
I think that's a pretty novel idea.
No, yeah. And I think people are kind of following suit. Like, because they're. I mean, even the really strong, like just go-getters, are they're like, okay, I'm done. I'm like, and I get it.
I've had 3 seniors.
Yeah, and I teach seniors, and so I'm used to it. Yep. It's one of those things you just got to kind of keep grinding. But I don't get mad. It's just it's a way, it's kind of a way of life, but it kind of happens. So.
It is.
It is. Yeah. But.
So talk a little bit about the multi-school stock competition that you have started. Right. Tell our audience a little bit about how you started it, what your vision was, and how you think it's going.
Yeah. So we're about to have our 3rd annual this year. But before, when I was at the school, I would do these competitions in the school, within the school. And I thought, these are, and it would be individuals, sometimes teams, right? And we had some small prizes. I can't really give cash to my students. Yeah, so I'd have to get like gift cards or something. And so I thought to myself, and this was kind of my thought. I thought, okay, I would really like to take that citywide or to the more of the population of students who I could reach, not just St. Mary's Hall. Mm-hmm. And so I had to, this is the hard part. I'm still, working on this, right? I've only had 3 schools in the last 2 years that I was able to reach a person at the school, and that's the key. I had to find a sponsor to kind of get it going. And I found a few. I found one at Incarnate Word, St. Mary's Hall, Incarnate Word, Keystone, and
Texas Military Institute.
TMI. Yeah, so sorry. Yeah, those are private schools who I knew teachers there already, and one of them teaches personal finance, one of them teaches economics, and one of them teaches math, but has the club that's the investment club, right? And so it's perfect, and so it worked out really well. So once I got those, they kind of asked the kids who wants to be involved, and it really took off in that school. And for the teachers, I think it was a good thing. And I think they have become, have a bigger standing at the school. I think it's made them look good at the school. And I thought, great, whatever. It's a win-win for everybody. Sorry, let me back up a little bit. Part of that was there was a citywide competition, personal finance citywide competition that the CPA Society did here. That's kind of where I got the idea of how to run it. Okay. Right? So I wasn't sure how to do it, right? So that's kind of where I said, okay, let me put together a competition, and then like the first year it was just a competition, and then these last few years it's been a pitch, and so it was just more of a stock market competition. But now they run from August, or I think we started in October. So October, November, December, 6 months to April. They'll do a competition as a school. So there'll be only like 3. This year will be 4 teams. I got another school that's Holy Cross that's now involved, and so they're running. So they're gonna do a simulation as a team at the stock market. They're $100,000, and they'll buy as many stocks as they can, or they'll invest as much as they can. And whoever wins the competition gets a prize, first, second, and third. And then also I give a monthly prize. The reason I do that is because, I think because you can do well in a month and still not be in the top.
Yes.
And I want them to keep interested. And I did that with my students as well, because a lot of times they're losing. They're like, oh, I'm going to stop. I'm not going to play. Like, I can't win. There's no way I can catch up, right? So I thought, no, let's keep you interested, because that's, I mean, I don't want you to stop playing, or if I lost too much money, but you can still win percentage-wise during the month. And so that was the onus behind that. And so then in April, I will have them come in and do a pitch. And so that's, there's a lot of pitches out there. I know that nationally there's the one that Carnegie Mellon does, that's a stock market competition type of pitch. And so that's kind of where I did some research. How can we do this? And it's gone well. This is our third year to do it. And again, I'm trying to get as many schools as I can involved. That's really, I really want to expose anybody to this market. I think that's the key. I mean, I'd love to have some of the inner city schools. I'd love to have, I just can't. I've been trying to contact them, and it's hard to find somebody to do that. And once I do, though, I think once they get it, I think they're in. They're hooked.
So let's make a plug for any parents listening that have kids at schools that have not been mentioned. Right. Jose would love to find a teacher that would help sponsor this. And it would be fantastic to have 10 or 12 schools competing in this 6-month process. But what these kids learn and the engagement that they have in thinking about their future is amazing. And it's not just about the stocks, but it's about imagining yourself in a professional role in this area. Am I contributing to my 401k? Do I want to be an analyst? Do I like picking stocks? How do stocks, just the stock price of a company, impact a company? Right. It helps kids think so much larger 100%. Than just what they know right now. Right.
And also that fear and greed thing too comes up. That really gets them to maybe check their emotions and show, maybe I shouldn't, and be objective and have a plan and work it out and collaborate. The collaboration, the gentleman that won Incarnate Word, they had 30 kids when I went to go visit the school to give them their check. It was like, wow, this was fun. And he was like, principals, like they had all the administration there. It was huge. And I think once they're exposed, and it also, you're right. And thanks for mentioning that about when I started the club, people started gravitating towards the field of finance. They want to do this, right? You've exposed them to something that is a great field to get into, if it's something you like to do. And that's, I think, what we try and do is give them as many things to do that, this is what I like to do, to have a passion and find that and go, I really like this, or I can see myself doing this for a career. And I think it's been great to hear from students that have graduated from St. Mary's Hall that still come back and say, hey, thank you for this. I was meeting a young man who's now working in finance in Austin for a startup company. I was like, oh, good for you. I mean, it's just as a teacher, as much as you know, I don't make that much money. It's a decent salary, but the reward comes from that. Honestly, I love to hear that. I love to hear them talk about, like, this is the greatest thing ever. Whether it be finance or something else, but it's just
you awaken something in them.
Right. Or, and even if it's not something you pursue, like you said, it's something that you understand. Like, because I believe you can only work so hard. You can only make so much money by working. You have to make your money work for you. I mean, literally, I try and show them. Here's some examples of if you put this much money away every month. And there's an example. I think it was one where I said you put $200 away every month for 18 years. Let's say your kid's born. You put it away for them. Stop at 18. Even if you're going to 65, you're talking about it's going to be $1 million plus money. And you're done. You can stop putting in 18 as long as you let that grow. And it's compound interest. Yeah, that's the key.
That's right.
That's the key. And I think they need to see that. They need to see, okay, because it takes a while. You got to be patient. Patience is a big part of this. I mean, it's hard for me as a trader sometimes. I get patient, but when it comes to the long run, yeah, absolutely. With your retirement, it's like you put that money away and let it grow for you. I mean, my retirement in my own 403Bs, because we have my school. I mean, I tell the kids, and I'm pretty frank with it. I have quite a bit of money left because I started as soon as I got here 20 some years ago. I started putting in the company matches and like, it'll grow. Right. And it has, I mean, like the kids are like, oh my God, you're a teacher. I was like, I'm telling you, it works.
I tell everybody investing it's not a quarter by quarter. Right. It's a 20 year by 20 year. I mean, it really does take time for it to work. And I think that's where the psychology part comes in. I think you got to, I had a young man who came and spoke to my students, and he's a financial planner. And he said, he had a business degree, but he said, I should have gotten a psychology degree. And I would go back and do that because a lot of what I do is try to calm people down. Right. Or just to say, okay, it's okay. Market's turning, it's turned, whatever. And he's like, but it'll come back, and you just have to
have to trust what you
So-
have or what you're invested in. So
I have a degree in psychology, and I thought I would never use it, but I use it every day. And behavioral psychology, I mean, that's what
No,
the
100%.
behavioral finance, that's what the markets are all about, is
You can see
helping
it. You can
you
almost- right.
not make your own mistakes out of fear at the wrong time and out of greed. Like, why would I sell the winner? Well, because it's been a really big winner, and you never go broke taking profits.
That's correct.
So we have,
and then if it's losing, it's like, okay,
it'll come back. It'll come back.
That, or you need to start think about cutting your losses. You know? It's because it can keep going.
Yes, and people think it'll come back, but
I've heard the saying is, but the market's always right. Like you're the one, you're trying to outsmart the market. It will not happen that way. It's very difficult to do. So
it is.
I get that. I've learned my own lesson with that. But I have a small account that I play with. It's just one of those things I have for fun.
Well, I am a huge fan of what you're doing at the school, and I have been fortunate enough to judge the competition a couple times, and it is so much fun to watch these kids. They are excited. They have put so much work into this, and it just flows from them.
I think they learn a lot, not just the investment side, but they learn how to present.
Yes.
They learn how to collaborate. They learn how to think about what they're doing. And it's just amazing to see what they developed. And I do that with my students as well. You know, they do pitch in my club. They have to pitch. They don't have to pitch, but I want them to pitch. And I try to encourage them, hey, get up there, make it as comfortable as possible, because I want them to get up there and go. I remember vividly this young man, his freshman year when he pitched, he looked straight at the whiteboard. It was like, he didn't turn around and go,
ignored the people.
He's like, and it was great. It was great information. I was like, okay, I sat him down and said, and he became one of the best.
It's fantastic.
Like he learned his lesson, and he's going to Yale. I think this kid is like, he's going to have size, but it was just fun to see that process, because he was like, oh, okay. And he kind of just, and he picked, but you have to do it.
Yes. That's right.
You have to get yourself out there. And that's, I try to encourage kids, make mistakes. It's fine.
I'm so glad
Try
to
get
hear
out of
you
your
say
comfort
that.
zone, because that's how you learn.
We talk about that. That's right.
Yeah.
We talk about this at the firm with families, is money is the only place that we put this unrealistic expectation on our children that you won't make any mistakes, because you can't, where you have to allow for that space to make mistakes, because that is how you learn.
Right.
So, whatever money you're going to give them initially, expect them to burn through it. Expect them to make bad decisions, because that is how they learn. And that pain from that mistake, it stays with you.
Right.
But
And
the
that's how you
wins,
learn.
the wins don't as much, but the pains really
I've
do.
always learned through sports, or whatever you want to call it, failures, you learn a lot more through failure than winning. It's easy to win. It's easy to have that. You love winning, but when you fail, it's how you react to it.
And you always want to win more, and you don't want to fail again.
Yeah.
So,
and that's your motivation to either learn from what you did, right, not make the same mistake again. Even though with trading for me, I do it all the time. Like, I just did that again. But it's hard. But it's not just I'm investing, but anywhere in life. Like, whether it's playing in sport,
agreed.
Grades. You got students. I think we've kind of. I think society's kind of moved away from that. They don't want to let kids fail. I say no.
It's part of growing.
That's how we learned. I mean, that's how I learned. I mean, that's how you. And that it's tough. It's tough to see your kids fail. But I'm like, I'm not so. My son, he likes to work. I'm like, he's been through several jobs and he's working, and he's had some issues. Like, you're learning.
Right.
That's what I want you to do.
That's right.
And it's better learned here than it is when it really matters.
Right.
like,
not when you're 24 and you really want this.
You have a family to support, and you're like. The mistakes are a little bit bigger,
costlier.
And they are. And so you want to make sure you're prepared for that and know how to deal with it, because it might happen. You never know. So, yeah.
I think you and I share the same frustration. Why isn't financial literacy a required course 100%. For teens in Texas?
100%. In Texas, everywhere.
Agreed.
Literally, it would make our country, just society, so much better. Just to be financially savvy, because it teaches other things as well. It teaches responsibility. It teaches independence. And I think it would solve so many problems. I do. I think we have so many problems out there nationally that just having taken this course or understanding just simple finances would make a huge difference in people's lives. Because I believe you can be good with your money whether you're rich or poor. I mean. It's easier when you're wealthier. I mean, there are other things that come with it. However, you can be savvy. You just have to you have to budget, we can talk about it later, but you have to kind of know the principles of how to handle your money.
We say it doesn't matter how many zeros are in the bank account. You still have to have the same set of skills.
Correct. Because I have friends when I went to medical school that are I won't name their names, who are physicians who still have debt. And I'm like, how do you make so much money? How do you still have debt? But they spend, and that's kind of the.
So if you had to design a class for financial literacy, what concepts would you make sure were covered?
Oh, okay. Yeah, for sure. Budgeting. First thing would be, that's probably the first thing you should hit is budgeting, because that encompasses a lot of things that go with it, right? Whereas budgeting, credit, understanding credit, you got to understand whether it's credit cards or loans or any kind of credit you're going to have, because there's bad and good credit. Investing, of course, whether it be for mostly, I would think, and the way I do it in classes, we talk about retirement. I think retirement's where you think about, what am I investing for, right? It could be school for your college for your kids, right? That's one of those things too. Those are the long-term things you look at. Paying your bills on time, right? And that goes with kind of the budgeting, right?
And credit score.
Credit score is so important when trying to
being set up
borrow for a house,
right?
Borrow for a car, and most people do. Like I'd love, and I tell my students when it comes to borrowing for a car, I think it's probably not a good investment, or not a good thing to finance, but you almost have to. There's a lot of people don't have $40,000 or $30,000, so you have to kind of. But if you can pay cash for it, because that's not a good. That's not an appreciating asset. It's an appreciating asset.
Drive it off the lot, and it's worth $6,000 less than when 100%.
I do go into tax. I would go into taxes briefly and just say, look, and most people understand, or not understand, but they know kind of the idea of taxes. But it's, you've got federal tax, you've got property tax, you've got payroll tax, you've got all kinds of things that you need to understand, that you don't just make $40,000 or you make so much a month. It's not going to get all, you're going to get all of it.
That's right.
Here's a paycheck. That's one of the things I do show them. I say, when my paycheck is, I've used other, I can't use my paycheck, but I use
a sample
other things.
paycheck.
Like here's what they made, here's what came out, here's why it came out, here's the taxes they took from it. I said, it's important. And I tell students, one of the big things I tell them is, like, when you get that W-4, and I harp on this because they have part-time jobs, I said, make sure you put exempt on that, because they'll take taxes out of your check. And they go, if you're not going to make the standard deduction, right? You're going to make, I forget what it is, $14,000 or whatever it is right now. As you'll make so much, but they won't take it out. But if you don't do that, they'll take it out. And you have to file your taxes to get that back, and you should, because you want to get that back. You've made it, and they don't. Yes. So hopefully, and that's one of the biggest things I talk about young students. Insurance, we talk about insurance. Make sure, but that's all kind of the budgeting part, right? So budgeting to me is where all that kind of fits in. So I introduce it there, but then we go into it more detail later on as a section, right? Just so they understand car insurance, renter's insurance, things for young people, right? Renter's insurance, life insurance, we talk about it, but it's not something.
Right, they're healthy.
No, there's a purpose to it. Insurance has a purpose. There's all kinds of insurances, right? There's disability insurance. There's long-term, short-term. It gets kind of crazy. So I don't try to get too much in the weeds with the young people, because then they'll
tune out.
Yeah, they'll class. Like, I'm not paying attention anymore. So that's kind of, and that's it. Of my 20-some years I've been teaching, I have found it harder to keep their attention. It has been harder. I've seen that kind of move, where I think social media, I think technology has kind of made it hard.
Agreed.
Because back when I was in school, there was no technology. It was like, books, and everything was handwritten. Everything was, you go to the library, you search for things. It was all a process, and it was hard. It wasn't easy. Now it's at their fingertip, and they can do everything so easily. I think it's a great tool. I think technology is a great tool, but I think it's been detrimental in the sense where I think it's made it so easy of a process, which is great, but almost it takes away from that education part, because it is so easy. And with AI coming, with ChatGPT, it's
just going to get easier in some ways.
Yeah, it is. And there's a plus again to that, and a minus. The minus being from my perspective. So I try to do everything by hand, by paper. I have notes. I have them write down notes with their, instead of on the laptop, which they like to do. They want to go to their laptop. I'm like, no, let's see if we can write these down. There's some things I need for the laptop, some links and stuff, but for the most part, I want them to handwrite stuff. So, and they don't complain. Once you get them going, and I'm sitting there, and I give them a template so they're hand, because remember when I was young, we had to note everything. Oh my God, this takes,
yes.
You were trying to write, like, slow down, you can't do that, right? Your teacher's not going to slow down for you.
Right.
But what's the important things? But there's a process to that as well. But yeah, to me, and you'll hear teachers say it a lot. The process, not so much it's not what you get into like in math, right? The correct answer is not what I'm looking for so much. It's really how you got there.
Right.
And I think in life, it kind of works that way.
Do you understand the process?
Because you can't, and the kids will, I get this often. I get them a test and I'm like, well, you didn't ask us that question. I'm like, well, I did. I just didn't ask that question, right? But here's the same process here. It's like, well, because they memorize the steps.
That's right.
I'm going to throw you, you're not going to be in life that way too. Yep. I mean, you've got like, oh, it's not that way. It's like, well, you got to figure that out. That's problem solving, right?
Right.
That's a huge thing for me is critical thinking and problem solving.
I love it. I love it. I think that's what we have suffered from in our education system is we quit teaching critical thinking in so many ways. And to your point, technology has hastened that.
Right. Because you don't have to, you can just go, it's right there.
Right.
I don't need to think about. And that's, I mean, one of the things I think when kids are leaving, because I've been asked before by students about this class. I do think it's the most important class. I think it's a very important class. I would argue that English. I think three things that I would love for kids to leave with when they leave, or not live, but we teach them when they leave St. Mary's Hall. I said, learn how to be a critical thinker. I think it's very, very important. I think financial literacy, I think, is a key. But I also think that communication, effectively communicating, is crucial.
Yes.
I mean, whether it's oral, actually, if you look at all the people who are like running companies, they're very good on the stump. They can hold an audience's attention, this, that, and the other. I think that is crucial. But whether it be an email, any kind of written word, any kind of orals, you need to know how to communicate, and I think that's crucial.
I think that's true. In our large families that we work with on ongoing family meetings, communication is one of the pieces that we are constantly coming back to. There's always a component on communication because if you just think about in your family, you get into family dynamics and it's hard to get out of some of those roles sometimes as a family unit. But when you're coming together with substantial wealth, you need to think of yourself as business partners and you need to communicate on a professional level as business partners. And you need to leave what happened when y'all were 10 outside and respect the gifts, the skills that you're bringing to the table as business partners at an older age.
Well, and I think also when you meet people and you communicate with them, when you first impressions are crucial.
They are.
Whether you're in an interview, you've got to be able to be confident enough to speak about yourself and get it out there the right way.
That's right.
It's hard unless you practice. And that's the thing about practicing is you've got to put yourself out there. That's why I tell these kids, pitch stuff, get up there, do the, and through my classes, my personal finance class, and even my stats, if I can, I'll have them do presentations. I want them to, and the kids are pretty good at it for the most part, but some aren't and some are uncomfortable. But I'm like, God, it's so important to get up there, or not even just get up there in front of people, but just with people. You might be in a table meeting with a meeting, some kind of meeting. You've got to get your point across. You've got to know, first of all, what you're talking about, but you've got to get it out there. And they've got to go, okay, I see you.
Even if they're not the one talking, they've 100%. Still had to learn the steps of how 100%. To build that plan.
And the other thing I always try and tell my students, I said, look, pretend that you're being watched all the time. Be professional all the time.
Yes.
Because you never know who's watching or who's, it's happened in my life. It's happened in my wife's life. She's chief medical examiner now, but she worked with the DA years ago because he had some influence on the hiring process. He said, you were very professional back then. I remember this case we did together and you got my endorsement. Like it was, but that's because she just
conducted herself properly.
But you never know.
That's
right.
What
you could be at a club or maybe out, socializing, whatever. Just be professional. I say professional. Watch what you do, right? Watch what you do.
Be mature.
Be mature. That's a good way to put it. But
it's great advice.
Yeah. So I tell this, because students, nowadays they do, with social media and like be careful what you put out there because.
It's great advice.
Yeah. But apps, I forgot. So going back to the budgeting and stuff, I think the apps they have now are very good. There's an app for almost everything, right?
Right.
You can, without naming certain companies, but there's so many different apps that can help you budget, that can help you put things together. I still use Excel. Mm-hmm. I still used to do, I'm still old school, You've
got your template.
Right. But it's, but there's things out there. And I'm being old school. It's hard for me to put my stuff out there on technology. I have enough problems putting it in a bank, right? On technology, right? I'm like, okay, I don't know who's going to hack this. It's kind of one of those things. I think I think it's fine. I think, as young people, I think you should, it helps you keep organized though. I think it's great. And they love apps. And so whatever works to help them out. And the kids that do take my class and that do finish, they do tell me, they think, thank you. They'll say, I even if it's, like I said, they take certain main points out of it. That's great. I said, you now have a lot more than what I had, right? I came out, when I was in college, I had like 6 credit cards. I had no idea. I was like, they were just giving away like candy.
That's right.
And I was like, and luckily they have some rules now or laws now, they can't do that. But it was like, I was in debt. I was like, yeah, don't do that. And I often use myself as an example. Yeah, because it was so hard. I was not really taught. And my dad or my family just kind of said, study the books, don't worry about that.
Right.
A lot of doctors when I was in medical school, we had no clue about financial.
Right.
We were just going through school, right?
Yes, we say that about many professions. You're not taught about the business aspect of that profession, and that can cause problems.
Absolutely, because, you can do very well with money, but if you have no idea where it's going, athletes, great example,
Yep.
You've got to be careful where you're spending your money, who's handling your money. And,
yes.
And you're making a lot of money. People are going to come out, they're going to come out of the woodworks trying to get you to help them, I guess.
And family isn't always the best choice. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. And that's often one of the questions I ask is about when it comes to credit. One of the questions I'll ask is, would you let your family member borrow $200 or whatever? And what are the pros and cons there?
Right.
Because, yes, it's your family member. You want to do that, but no, because you might not ever see that. You might not have that same family member. It's just so hard.
You could say the same thing about your 3 best friends, because I'm sure 2 of them are no's and 1 of them's a yes.
Correct. And it's an interesting conversation we had, because kids already know, I'm not doing that. I was like, that might be smart.
Right.
Because you might have the means to do that. And it's hard not to help, right? A family or a friend out. But you got to remember, this is almost enabling. It's almost, if they're not good with their money, there's a reason they're asking you for money.
Right.
And that's
teach.
That's the tough part. That's a tough.
Give a man a fish and he's eaten for the day. Teach a man to fish and you've fed him for a lifetime.
Correct. That's a good point.
So for years, I have wanted to host a financial literacy boot camp at work. It's just been a passion of mine for all the reasons we have discussed here. And after being asked to judge a few of the stock competitions, I thought, okay, maybe Jose is my man to help me accomplish this. Yeah. And this summer, I'm really pleased that we were able to launch our first inaugural financial literacy boot camp for really, I think, seniors and college kids. And we've learned some things along the way, but I am so appreciative that you would bring your years of experience to help me do this. And I hope that it is a recurring offering every 100%. Summer where if it's not a required class in Texas, we'll make it available to parents who want to send their kids through it.
Yes, and I appreciate the ask for that, because I truly believe it should be, every young person should have some type of financial literacy course or personal finance or something of that nature. That's why they offer so much to adults later on in life, Right. It's all, they're all over the place, right? Online, because it's so important for them to have that. But yes, I think the way we kind of designed it, the way I kind of put it together, I definitely will change kind of a little bit of that.
Some other things.
Yeah. But
we have really strong support. There were probably 25 kids in person and another 10 who wanted to join virtually. Right. We learned some things about camp and jobs that we'll adjust for. But and talk a little bit about the program.
Yeah, no. So we had the one full day of lessons, which I think I was able to present. I got what I wanted to get across, right? About budgeting, about investing, about, you didn't go into major detail, but I went into enough detail. So they had to start, and they had to start to maybe on their own, maybe get, and that's what happens too. They'll catch something, let me look into more of this. And they'll at least have that's why I had a template of notes. That's why I had them write down their notes, and I wanted them to have something to take with them, right? You can find this stuff online. You can Google this and you can find it.
But it's almost overwhelming online. So the fact that you've narrowed it down.
And it took me a while to put that kind of together, because I'm used to planning a whole semester a year. So I had to kind of go, let me crack down what's the most important thing, and still kind of make it a little engaging. I didn't want to make it completely me just sitting there talking.
Yes.
So I think the kids were engaged. I mean, they were taking the notes the whole time. And I think that's why I put the notes out there. So it keeps them engaged. I've learned that through teaching. That's kind of my take on what I do. But yes, but the competitions that we had, I thought the budget competition and the stock market competition, which we started, I think what I'll do next year, because I didn't get not all the kids kept up with it, and I thought that might happen. I just didn't know how many would not. So I think we're sitting here this year. Next year, I think what we should do is have it for the whole week, and maybe do morning time, Monday, and then introduce that competition on the very first day.
Yes.
And then run it for 1 week. And just, okay.
So right now the program is there's a budget competition, and every week you can do 2 months.
I have it scheduled that right.
Yes.
So it's a gamified kind of online version. And the kids that do it, they really like it. It's fun.
They love it.
Yeah,
it's not fun. Just fun.
It's fun. But you got to get them to kind of get there first, and then they get kind of addicted to it.
I have 3 college-age kids who are like, I play this after work. This is my fun. Yeah.
So they've done a pretty good job with that. So I think, and so what I would do is have it, and it's 12 months in the game, right? But you can do it like each month takes about 10, 15 minutes to actually process through of actual time. And so we can do that in the week, I believe, and then still have a winner. But then we're doing it with them. Or they're there, present. I'll present maybe on first day budgeting and get them going on the game started, right? And then we'll go into, insurance or credit or on a different day, but they're still continuing either to do it with us at the time, and we can, and I did that in my own class. I'd walk around and help them because, I'm getting stuck here. That way they're kind of holding their hands, and then they can take off once they get going. They understand it. I think that'll work out better for as far as like the students to keep up with it, to do it. I think it is kind of fun. So hopefully that'll work. And as far as the stock market competition, we can still probably run that throughout the summer, get them going again on those and during that week. But once they get going, even if they just purchase all their stocks on that day, they can hold them.
That's right.
And say, look, okay,
and check in
2 months later, maybe. Yeah, that's kind of the idea. And say, okay, did I pick the right? In 2 months. 2 months is not a long time in the market, as you know. But it still gets them engaged to see, okay, how am I doing? Right? What's happening? Why did the stock tank 15%?
And I love it because they can see their peers. They don't know who they are.
Right.
But for a competitive society.
Which is what we are.
They are. And they're like, where am I in the rank? Who's ahead of me? How is this? What do they own?
Well, with that competition I do with the citywide, with the other schools, they'll email me. The sponsor email me is, hey, so who's the? I don't tell them who's who.
Yes.
Well, you can tell who's who, but I don't tell them what they're in.
Right.
Like, can you tell me? I said, no, I'm not telling you what they're in. I can see what they're in, and actually, at that point, it doesn't matter. Almost, it's like, okay, so they did well for this last month, but who knows? Next month it might go the other way.
I think the whole point of this is just that it breeds curiosity 100%. And that engagement.
Engagement is crucial, and then they on their own can either choose to go. I had just to go back to my class at the very end of last year. I had and this is the first time I did this. I had my classes actually, my financial classes, my personal finance class, pitch a stock. That was their project, to get a group together and pitch a stock. And they're not, and some of them are part of my club, some aren't. But this one group of girls who really didn't seem that interested in investing, and they said, but they found the stock, the Ozempic, and they were so Nova Nordic. I forget it was and they did this pitch. I was like, oh my gosh, we didn't end up picking that stock. We should have.
Yes,
done well.
yes.
But I'm like, this was, and they were mad at me. Like, they were not mad at me, but I let the group pick. Right? They were mad. Like, why didn't we? I was like, I can't remember who they picked, but they should have. And I agreed with. I couldn't stick my 2 cents in. I was like, well, we should pick this stock.
It's a good life lesson too.
Oh my gosh! But they were so excited and then so disappointed. But you saw that engagement. I was like, whoa! And that I think it was 4 girls involved. Like, they did a great presentation. They did the research, because it's not just about Ozempic,
right?
But it's about the wellness and diet. I said they're going to come out. They did it. I was like, whoa, this is fantastic. I like to see that, because people who don't usually have an interest, and just this made them very interested. So.
Well, I love that it's starting in high school. We work very, very closely with a local university. And we work with their investment club, with their dean over there who runs that. And so I love it, because I get these kids that are about to launch into their career. And I'm seeing more and more women in the class, which I'm really appreciative of. So the fact that you can start to find them in high school and encourage them, and seeing them at the stock competition last year. I mean, as a CEO of a company in this industry, it gives me such hope to see more women feeling confident about it, more men interested from a curiosity standpoint in it. It just bodes well for our industry.
Well, going back to that point about females in the so my club, when I started it was started by a girl and a guy. So it's to get the very big. 10 years ago. But then it was mostly men. I could not. I was just trying to find young women to be, and I purposely, if I had one, I'd say, okay, find your friends.
Right.
I mean, just if you can bring them. And I tried to make them an officer. I said, run for office. And I kind of back channels. I'm like, okay, I want this. I can't really, I try not to think you're going to be, but I want, and right now my strongest officer is a female. She's just a go-getter. She gets great ideas. She comes out with these, I mean, she's fantastic. And I said, you got to go get some, see if you can go get some. And she tries, and she's making the effort. But for some reason, it's just, it's hard. There's a competition coming up. It's out of UPenn, Carnegie Mellon. There's a competition they run. It's a big competition that I have a group of 4 people, 3 of which are girls and a guy, that are going to do this competition. They got together, and only a couple of them are part of my group, right? And you don't have to be part of my group.
Right.
They want to, I think, again, looks good on the resume, but they really want to get this going, and I'm like, I'll sponsor that. Fantastic. You guys go do it.
I love it. The encouragement of a teacher can make or break things for students. And, you look back at some really successful people who say, it was my 4th grade teacher, it was my high school teacher.
Somebody connected with them.
Somebody encouraged them.
Somebody encouraged them, if not the family. That's the other thing about, if you were to ask me about why I think the class is also kind of important, because as a parent, you can teach your kids this stuff, right? But they don't want to learn.
Yeah, they don't listen to you.
So the parents have told me afterwards, thank you for getting my kid involved, because now they're asking me questions.
Right.
And I think it just needs that seed, just that idea of, okay, this is why this is important. And they will once they're engaged, they will ask. And they have parents that told me, thank you. They asked me for a credit card. They asked me for this, that, or the other. They want to talk about investing. They want to talk about, and that's what they, I think parents are okay. They want to talk about that with their kids because they want to make sure they're prepared for the future as well. But
it's just whenever we open our mouths, they go, "Oh, Mom."
Right. Well, when I was a tutor, that was the thing. There's some bright parents, some very successful parents that would hire me. I'm like, they can do it, but the kids, it's just not the same.
That's right.
And you don't want the tension you get. It makes for something that you don't want from your parent, your child. You'd rather them have it learned somewhere else because it just creates more friction, I guess, sometimes from parent to child. And so,
it's you're telling me instead of a natural curiosity that comes.
Correct.
So speaking of that, what advice do you have for parents of high school or college age kids regarding money and finances?
Well, first of all, take a class.
Yes.
Tell them to take. You can get them to take a class. That way, they will solve a lot of your problems or issues or angst. But if not, I think you have to give them opportunities, right? So. If you give them an allowance, well, then say, here's $100 a month, whatever, $100 a month. This is what you get for gas. You have to pay for it, and allow them to not just have a credit card, because whatever they're spending, they're paying for it, right?
Right.
Get them to understand the value of money, right? That's the whole thing. So, because a lot of as parents, and I do this myself, we'll pay for our stuff for our kids and this and that, but I think they won't understand how much what that is.
Or they just call us Mom, I need gas, and we're like, okay, but not again. Yeah, but it happens again.
Have them track their spending. Just say, look,
that's
just for a week, track your spending. What do you spend money on? Like literally anything you spend, write down. What we're paying for, but just track this, right?
Right.
To see where that money's going, and if I gave you an allowance of such and such, could you afford to do that? And I want you to do that.
Well, and writing it down is different than looking 100%. At it in the app.
100%. I think writing it down, or even, you could type it up on an Excel, but putting it together yourself. Right. It makes a huge difference. And again, I've made this joke about losing weight, right? I think it's the same. It's not rocket science, right? It's not hard. It's just hard to do. The concept is not, mind blowing, but not to eat that cake.
Discipline and process. Discipline and process.
100%.
Discipline and process.
And I think that also carries over in other things in your life. But I think having a bank account, of course, I think a lot of people do that. But having with their kids, having a checking and savings account, I'll ask this question to a lot of kids, but I believe in letting kids have a credit card. Because you can. I think it's easier to control that or track that. Not control it. They can go out and but then you could cut them off. We're done. But you put ground rules to that and say, okay, but and we're going to pay with it. Here's how we're going to pay. But it builds their credit, right? If it's an authorized user, there's ways to get them to build their credit with that. But I think you can also track that, and it's easier to track, and we can track their spending, right? But I think tracking their spending is very good. If you can, show them how you pay your bills, right? Show them, because we automate everything, because I think, because I will forget to, oh my God, when I was paying my check, I was like, we're just sending it on by mail all the time. It's so much easier to have the computer, have a recurring payment. Let's have them do it, and I keep track of it, but make sure it's done. But it's done, right? Because I'll a lot of people forget.
Right.
That's what the game brings along to us. In the game, you have to, that's what a lot of kids were doing, is they were forgetting to pay their credit card. They were forgetting to pay, like, oh, you got to pay your bills. And they just like, oh, it's tedious. But you're going through it and like, okay, this stinks. Yeah. Nobody wants to do it.
Welcome to life.
Nobody wants to, right. Nobody wants to do it. But yeah, and I think maybe showing them, like, like we have our own, my wife and I, we'll have our son sit down and say, here's in our bank where we put it, and here's how it's coming out, and just to understand where it's coming from, right? I think they have to, we allow our son to have, I didn't have a part-time job when I was in school. My dad's like, books.
Right.
I think it's important for a kid to learn how to have maybe a part-time job, whether it be some of my students tutor at different places, or even babysitting, or even something where you're making money and it's your money. And now that's your money to spend. That's what you have.
Well, because you think differently when it's your money.
100%. Yeah, because my son, he'll make that money and he'll buy music. He's into music. He'll buy some music stuff, and I'm like, oh, so that costs like $200. You sure? I was like, I would love, and I've tried to, and I'm still trying to get him to, and I would tell to put away $20 a week.
Right.
Put away something, $10. Something small. I tell my students that. Just start putting away. Start when you're younger. Start putting away money so that you understand how to do that. And like, don't spend all your money, right? Take some of it and put it, whether it's it could be an investment account. Your parents can open like a custodial kind of account. I think that would be crucial as well. And even if it's, like I said, $10, $20, just start putting it away and then watching it grow. It will grow. It looks small because it's small, but you'll 6 months later, oh yeah, look, I have so much money. I made 3% or 4%, even if it's a small amount, but it's still, you're still making, and you're not doing anything. You're just putting it away.
Your money is working for you.
Right. 100%. You can't beat that. Yeah. That's why I think wealthy people become so much more wealthier.
That's right.
It's not like they work and they're grinding, they do well as whatever they do, but
you did whatever you did to create that money, but then that money is working for you while you're sleeping, while you're laying on the beach, while you're traveling, while you're taking care of grandkids, whatever it is you're doing, your money is still working for you.
But I think having a part-time job also teaches them about taxes, about the money coming out of their paycheck. Why is this money coming out? Because they're like, oh, well, because it's taxes. So I think there's different things that help with that, but not a lot of people can do that. The kids want, parents want their kids to focus on school, and I 100% get that. And they want them to have a social life, and it's tough if you're working and going to school, and and I think it is important to teach them about maybe having a savings goal, right? Have a goal like, okay, I want you to purchase this. Okay, you can buy that. It's $100. Start putting your money away. Here's let me show you a plan. Put $5 away. It doesn't even that much. Just something small. It's that process. It's completely about the process, and
not immediate gratification.
Right. It delays gratification, right? Because you say, I'll just buy it for you, right?
We could do a whole nother show just on tips for how to do things with kids.
And it's hard to do, though. As a parent, it is hard.
It is.
You want your kid to have that. You want your kid to be happy.
Well, and you pick your battles, and there's only so many things, that you're willing to
because you'll get
create
pushback.
friction.
You'll get pushback. Why can't I, why aren't you paying my gas? Or why aren't you? Because you need to understand this is not how this, I'm not going to be here forever. You're going to have to, I think that when and going back to that being the critical, I think this was not me. I was not, I guess my parents focused on me doing well in school and this and playing sports and stuff, but being, a kid without those heavy things that come with being an adult. But I was not as independent as I wanted to be. When I got out of high school, I wish I were more independent. My wife was 14 years old. She had her own job. She was paying her bills. She was so, and that shows right now.
It gives you a leg up on the competition.
100%. But it's hard to teach that. It is.
Right.
Because you have to let them fail. You have to let them experience these things that are adult things, right? And you kind of want to protect your kids, and it's hard to do that. But God, it's so important because I would not have probably made the decisions I made, of my own before I met my wife, because she, said, no, we're not doing that. I said,
that's
okay.
Good. That's good.
Yeah, no, 100%. So I give my wife all the credit for that, but you have to be, it doesn't have to be, but it's great, especially if you're a female, I think, or I said it could be anybody, but you want to be you want to be strong and be able to be on your own and to be, because, that's when you discover relationships, it's, you're not dependent on somebody else.
Exactly.
100% be on your own. Yeah. If I've had a daughter, I would say, look, no, don't rely on somebody else. You rely on yourself. And hard to teach, but it's, I think, crucial. That's where the critical thinking comes in. That's where the financial literacy comes in. That's where the effective, all those things are like communication. You can become not an expert, but do those things well, I think you will be independent. I think you will be a person who can do their own thing.
That's great advice.
Yeah. So, but I think you asked me early on about wealth. This is what this podcast.
This was my next question.
About,
what is wealth?
I think it's
to
freedom.
you?
I think it's freedom, and when I say that freedom, but I think money help with that. But it's not even just money, but it's being smart about it. Right? Not having a lot of it, but being smart with it. Honestly, I would not be in the job I'm in. And I love my job. I do. I can't see myself doing anything else other than being a rock and roll. Some off the wall. Like my son's kind of living that dream, and like, I'm living through him. I'm like, I'd love to be out there singing, playing a guitar, but that's not. I'm doing what I love to do. And the finance, the teaching finance brought even more joy, I think, because the kids never ask me, when am I going to use this?
Right.
Even with statistics, I'm like, oh, you will. Here's some examples. Let me show you. And you might. But yeah, it brings, go back to the freedom part, going through I almost, like after I came back to San Antonio and looking for an occupational therapy job, I said, look, you like math, you like tutoring, you like working with kids, see if you can find something doing that, right? Do you want to go? She asked me if I was teaching, right? Because I was going to be an actuary. That was a stats thing, right?
Okay.
Being an actuary, And I remember making a decision. She said, I did an internship and everything. I was almost there. I passed a couple of tests and I had a job lined up. So what do you really want to do? She asked me, she said, I would love to be a teacher. I really like this role. She said, I would not be able to do that without that. And not so much wealth, but she does, she was able to provide, but she was able to, we were good financially at that point. And she said, that's what it brought me. Same with my son. We're trying to incorporate the music thing because it's hard to make any music.
Right.
There's no guarantees. And we might have to pivot at some point, but we're trying to provide him with an opportunity to follow that passion. And I think it would be very difficult without the financial means. But I think we can still do it. But I think we have set up our life enough to where he will be able to follow that passion if he wants to do that.
And teaching him to be smart so that he has
100%.
Freedom and options
100%.
in his life.
Yeah. And what's funny is like, he'll do gigs or something and they want to do it for free. He's like, no, Mom, you're going to pay me for that.
There you go.
So he's like, I'm not. And so he's learning already how to manipulate the business side of it. And so that's fantastic. Yeah. And so, but I think it brings, I said wealth. It doesn't always have to be money. I think happiness is a big part of that, but when you are able to be successful, and I think I've had a successful career, even though I don't make a lot of money. I think what I'm doing is I'm happy, I'm successful in my own way as far as what I provide to students. That kind of, as far as money, but that pays me, in essence. Same with my wife. She does pretty well, but she's happy with what she's doing, and we want that for our kid. And so I think it does. I think wealth, freedom is what I just freedom to do different things with your life. It provides for that. But I mean, again, money's part of that, but not all of it.
Right.
Because you can go out and make a ton of. You don't like what you do. It's if you're miserable, you're like just waiting to retire. I hear people, who are still friends of mine who are still physicians going, I'm just waiting for that time to retire. I was like, oh.
It's no way to live.
No. But if you enjoy it, great. That's what you want to do. If money is what you're after, like you want to make a lot of money and it makes you happy, knock yourself out. If being an artist makes you happy, that's what when kids ask me, not for advice per se, they want to talk about. Like I had one of my students who graduated wanted to chat about this internship and stuff he had and what the opportunity was. I said, it's up to you. He presented me the information. I said, are you happy? Is this what you want to do? What are the pros and cons there? What you try and talk to them through that so they can think it for themselves. I don't want to say, look, this is what you should do. That's not my role. It's to really help them think about why they want to do it and that kind of thing. One of the questions I always ask when they ask me is, what do you not want to do? Like, just find something like, I don't like blood. I don't go to medicine. I don't like math. Well, don't go into, just focus on what you're really happy doing and see if you can make a career out of that. Because you wake up every day. I mean, I do. I'm not summer because I don't like summer. Actually, I'm thank you for the opportunity to work again. I'd rather work. I would rather teach. I should get crazy. Take the time off. But I enjoy doing it. I miss it, and I'm ready to go back. And every year it's different. For me because I get to do different batch of kids.
Right.
Some jobs are kind of repetitive and redundant. I don't sit behind a desk. I have a desk, but I'm standing up.
Right.
With the opportunity to do the personal finance in that competition, I can do that as well. I talk to I bring in people to speak to my students. That's another thing. That's one of the things I completely forgot about. In my class, I'll bring in professionals in the community who have a connection to the school or just well known,
Yeah.
And the kids are like, oh, this is great. And that's what they remember that big time. Because
That's
like,
great.
and they make a difference and they love doing it. It's so funny when to have them come in. Like these are some high profile people
Yep.
that probably charge for speaking, but they're like, oh, I'll do it. No problem. But I think
People
they
love
like
to
it.
give back.
Oh, 100%. And they feel like I think that they have, the people have helped them kind of get to where they are. So it's like, oh yeah, I'll get back to it. That's fun to see. That's fun. And it's fun to communicate with them. And they get a lot of, afterwards they're like, oh, this was great. The kids were engaged and this kind of stuff. And so, yeah, it's a lot of fun. And they're nervous at first. It's funny when they've been doing it. I have some that have been coming for a while, but at first they were nervous. Like, no, it's because they've spoken to thousands of people. Like,
Right.
Yeah, it's a bunch of kids. I'm like, yeah, because when I teach, I'm not nervous teaching a class, but I'll get up in front of like my colleagues and stuff like that. I don't like doing that as much, but I get in front of kids. Like, yeah, I'll do that.
That's fantastic.
Again, it's the opportunity. You've done it. That's what you want to give students. You want to give them opportunities to find what their joy in life is. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing your time
100%.
with us today. I
You're
really
very
appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I very much enjoyed this, and and I will, and looking forward to next summer.
Me too.
And the competition. Hopefully, you'll judge the competition again.
Be glad to.
And maybe come speak to my class. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jose.
Thank you, Liz. I appreciate it.